All right, so get ready because we are diving into a spooky folktale, just in time for Halloween.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. And picture this. Okay, so you've got this village, and right on the edge of it, there's this dark and mysterious forest.
Oh, spooky.
Right, it's the perfect setting for a Halloween story.
It really is.
So that's where the legend of the shadowed bats comes from. And we're going to take a deep dive into what makes these bats so different. So much more than just your average bats.
Yeah, what's interesting to me about this story is how it mixes like the natural world with the supernatural, and you see that a lot in these kinds of folk tales, like they kind of reflect our fears and the ways we try to explain things that we just don't understand.
Right, and especially when it comes to creatures of the night.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get right into it. What makes these shadowed bats so unique? What sets them apart?
Well, the stories describe them as having this jet black fur, like so black that they're almost invisible against the night sky.
Oh, wow.
And then you add to that glowing red eyes.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say those glowing red eyes, man. Can you imagine seeing that in the dark?
No, thank you.
Spooky for sure.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, as if that wasn't enough, their wingspans are supposed to be enormous.
Bro.
Like making them seem even bigger and more imposing.
It's like straight out of a horror film.
Seriously, it's like they're designed to tap into our deepest feels. Like darkness already makes us more alert, right? Because we can't see as well. So then you throw in like glowing eyes and giant wings. I mean, it's no wonder our minds jump to like danger and,
Yeah, we start making up stories to explain it.
Exactly.
Okay, so now it gets even creepier.
Oh, no.
The folktales. They say that these bats have this ancient instinct that makes them wake up earlier and earlier as Halloween gets closer.
Oh.
So it's like they're connected to the holiday itself.
Interesting.
Right. What do you think about that?
It's really fascinating to me how these legends tie into those cycles, like the seasons changing and celebrations like Halloween. It's like Halloween with all of its, themes of darkness and ghosts and all that. It becomes this perfect time for creatures like the shadowed bats to show up.
Right. Like they're part of the whole Halloween ritual.
Right.
So that brings us to Finn, the boy who had that terrifying encounter with these bats.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so just imagine this. It's Halloween night, the sun is setting, it's getting dark, and Finn, he's a curious kid, so he decides to go to the edge of the forest.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and as it gets darker, he starts to see all these glowing red eyes staring at him from the trees.
Yikes.
I'd be terrified.
Oh, for sure.
I would not move.
I think it's easy to dismiss, folk tales as just stories until you imagine yourself in that situation,
Yeah.
Like alone in the dark, facing something you don't understand. Then it becomes a lot more real.
Yeah, suddenly it's not just a story anymore.
Right, it's like a real threat.
Yeah, and Finn's story, that's really what made this legend spread and grow because, according to the story, one of the bats actually swooped down towards him, its wings, and silently cutting through the air.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Yeah.
So after that encounter, people were convinced that the shadowed bats were something to be afraid of.
Right, and that fear, that's where that even more scary belief came from, the legend of shadow stealing.
Oh, yeah.
The villagers started to believe that if one of these bats looked you in the eye, it could steal your shadow.
Oh, whoa. That's intense.
And, shadows, they have this really deep meaning in a lot of cultures. They often represent a person's essence or their soul.
So losing your shadow would be like losing a part of yourself. That's a terrifying thought.
Exactly, and it really changed how the villagers lived, especially around Halloween.
I can imagine.
Can you picture it like families locking their doors, peering out their windows, afraid to see those red eyes?
Yeah, that's a completely different way to celebrate Halloween.
Right, like no costumes, no candy, just fear and worry.
And it makes you wonder how much of our modern Halloween traditions come from these old fears and superstitions.
That's a good point.
And the thing is, the legend of the shadowed bats, it didn't stay in that one village. It spread further and further.
Really?
Yeah, and that contributed to this bigger idea that bats are scary creatures, especially around Halloween.
So they went from just animals to like symbols of darkness and the unknown?
Exactly. I mean, think about all the bat imagery we see at Halloween decorations, costumes, movies.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and these shadowed bats, with their unique look and spooky story, they tap right into that fear of what's hiding in the dark.
Makes you wonder if there's like a real bat species out there that could have inspired this whole legend.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
So we've explored this folktale that shows how much fear and superstition can influence how we see the natural world.
Right.
But it leaves us with a big question. What do you think? Are the shadowed bats real? Or are they just a figment of our imaginations, you know, driven by that fear of the unknown?
A good question to think about as Halloween approaches.
Right, and we're surrounded by all the spooky images.
Exactly.
Especially those bats.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Happy Halloween.
Be safe out there.
Yeah.
Watch out for those glowing red eyes.
You never know.
You never know.
Happy Halloween.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye.